I know that there are so many women in our society today who are suffering from PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, polycystic ovaries, polycystic ovarian disorder, PCOS, whatever you call it. You have cysts growing on your ovaries, and it is wreaking havoc with every other endocrine system in your body. I understand what you're going through. My story is a bit unconventional, based on conversations that I've had with other women. After I had my daughter in 2006, I was 28 years old at the time, so I'll let you guys do the math. I came down with something very strange. Like, I broke out in hives from head to toe. Literally every surface of my body, from head to toe, was covered in hives. I thought I had some type of allergic reaction because I had had a California roll, and I thought maybe the imitation crab in the California roll I had had some allergic reaction to. My mom has a seafood allergy, so I thought, this is some late stage seafood allergy developing. I tried Benadryl over the counter. I went to an allergist and my doctor. No one could seemingly tell me what the issue was or why this was happening, and nothing they prescribed to me could make that hive situation go away. It itched, it hurt like hell, and I felt like I looked disgusting. My tongue was swollen, my lips were swollen, so I literally looked puffy. And at this time, I'm pretty petite, so I'm 5'4" in terms of height, and I think at that time I was about 127, 128 pounds, somewhere around there. So that's like my usual normal weight. And I say that to say it'll make sense later on in the video. So that was the issue. We couldn't figure out what was going on. And since none of the medications here in the United States seemed to be doing the trick, my mom contacted one of my aunts in the UK, and she was able to get an over-the-counter allergy medication there. And I don't remember if my mom went and picked it up or if my aunt mailed it. My mom worked for an airline for a number of years, so I can't remember how I got it, but I got it. And I had several packs of it. It was called Piriton, just in case it happened again. So I think at the time my daughter was about 6-7 months, maybe 8 months. So now we're into 2007. I took 2 Piriton. You're supposed to take 1, but I took 2 because I was like, this is so painful, I can't take it anymore. And I went to bed. By the time I woke up in the morning, completely clear. Skin clear, I could talk normal, my tongue wasn't heavy, I didn't talk like this. My fingers weren't swollen, my joints weren't hurting, and never happened again. I avoided California rolls from that day forward. Fast forward to, I want to say maybe 2012, because I think my daughter was about 5 at this time. And I think about 2012. So I had another reaction. This time I was eating whole wheat bread with strawberry rhubarb jelly. So nothing that would really seemingly cause some type of an allergic reaction. Although years later I learned about gluten and gluten sensitivity, so I guess, that could have been it. Nonetheless, again, I break out in hives, head to toe, from scalp to soles of my feet, everywhere, tongue, everything. At the same time, I think my daughter was having some type of an issue, so I took her into her pediatrician. And her pediatrician is also an asthma specialist and an allergist, like very well known, very world renowned in that field. So I took her in, and at this time I had already popped my Piriton, so the welts and hives all over my body were starting to go away. I took her into the doctor, and while I was sitting there talking to him about her diagnosis, I think she had had like a cold, and so it triggered her asthma. I noticed that he was staring like directly at me, but he kept kind of like looking down like toward my neck. Now, you can't tell now because I've had the surgery, but he kept looking down toward my neck. And I do remember at the time that my neck felt kind of big. And I was a skinny person. Well, I was petite. I wasn't very heavy set. I had good muscle tone. So just like you can see definition around my neck now, you should have been able to see definition around my neck then, but you couldn't. And after he gave me the diagnosis on my daughter, he asked me a couple of questions. I don't really remember what the specific questions were, but some way, somehow, he got around to asking me, do you have trouble when you swallow? Do you feel tired? This and that. And I was like, yeah, I do have some trouble when I swallow. Sometimes when I sleep, it feels like I can't breathe. And he asked me about my neck, and I was like, oh, there's nothing wrong there. Like, I don't have an issue, blah, blah. And he said to me, I'm not your doctor. He said, but as a doctor, I can't see you in this condition and not say something about it. So he gave me a referral to go get a sonogram of my neck. And when I went, did it, came back, the results came into him, and he said to me, I'm going to suggest that you see an endocrinologist. And this is the first time I'd ever heard of an endocrinologist. And he said, you have an enlarged thyroid. And I was like, say what now? Because I didn't know what a thyroid was. I think in some strange vein, I thought my thyroid were fibroids. And I was like, oh my gosh, this affects so many Black women. Like, what's gonna happen to me? At least I have a kid now, kind of thing. I should have known better, but I didn't. And so I was like, okay. So he sends me, I go and I see an endocrinologist. She tells me I have a thyroid condition, that I have nodules on both sides of my thyroid, but on the left side, they're much bigger than on the right side, and launches into this whole thing. Now, up until this point, I have been healthy as an ox for my entire life. I've never had any issues. And so I was kind of like listening to her, but like when you watch TV shows and like you see people talking and then all of a sudden they go mute and the person looks dazed and confused, that was legit me. So from 2012 until 2015, I'd been told that I had a thyroid condition. At one point I was I had hyperthyroidism. So that's when your thyroid is overactive and you don't gain weight easily. Sometimes you lose weight very easily, very quickly, very often, which was the case with me. Like, I had been thin all my life, very slender. Even with my muscle tone, I had very lean muscle tone. And even having my daughter, like, I'd gained 70 pounds when I was pregnant. I started my pregnancy at 120 pounds. I went up to, I think I was 170, no, what am I saying? 70 pounds? No, I went up to 172. That was my weight the day I went in to deliver my daughter. After I had her, it took a while because I wasn't in a rush, but I lost all of the weight eventually, like every single pound. And then I kind of liked how I looked with a little bit more weight on, so that's when I went up to like 127, and I was happy at 127. So up until that point, I'd never really had thought about it, but apparently it was very dangerous to have such a condition. And then throughout the course of like the year from 2012 to 2013 being treated, my endocrinologist then turned to me and said, actually, you have hypothyroidism. So that meant my thyroid was underactive. Around this point in time, like 2013 leading into 2014, I'd gone from like 127 to like 138, 142, which still isn't that big. And because I was vain as hell, I worked out. I didn't like exercise, but I worked out because I knew I wanted to maintain a certain weight, a certain body proportion, a certain aesthetic. So did that, continued to work out. my weight, and then I would do like little diets here and there, because again, I've been skinny all my life. So I was like, what is this? Why can't I lose this weight? Like, I used to be able to do the slim fast diet, a shake for breakfast, a shake for lunch, and a reasonable dinner, and drop 10 pounds in a week. Easy, no exercise. I would even do cleanses. I did the fat flush, 14 pounds within 14 days. Boom, easy, no issue. And then the green smoothie cleanse, 10, 15 pounds within 10 days, easy. And then here I am, and I'm like, why can't I break out of 142? Like, what's going on? Or if I did break out of it, and at this time I was still working out, if I did break out of it, I noticed that I would have a longer time losing the weight than before. And everybody would say to me like, oh, you're getting older, you're in your 30s now, you're not in your 20s, your metabolism slows down, your fat cells are developing, blah, 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 blah. And in my mind, I was like, I guess in theory that makes sense, but the other side of me was like, yo, that's some straight bullshit. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I refuse to believe that. So I'm told I have hypothyroidism. They continue, my neck at this point is still big, but the other thing that I started to notice was maybe the year after that, or maybe it was that year, toward the end of the year, like around November, my period would stop coming until about January. And you know, this might be TMI, but I haven't always had like steady relationships. So at this point, my child's father and I had separated, and I wasn't really dating anyone, or like if it, you know, I was like, it would be someone I dated before, so we would be sexually active. So between November and January, I wouldn't have a period, but for some reason, January, I would always be getting it on. And then my period would come. So in my mind, like, I never really like put it together. I was just thinking like, oh, you know, sometimes when you're stressed, you don't get your period, or if there's other things going on, like, I wasn't really thinking about it. And they say like after you have a baby, your period goes a little wacko because your hormones are wacko. And this was the first time I had dealt with anything like that. And I didn't think anything was wrong. And because I wasn't, when I went to my gynecologist, they only ask you when was your last menstrual period. And then they say, have you noticed any like irregularities with your period? And because November to January was not within the window of time immediately preceding when I would go to the doctor, in my mind, like for whatever the next months were, I always had a regular period, and my period came on time, like clockwork. It came when it was supposed to. It came for 2 to 3 days at a time, which again, didn't know was abnormal, but I considered my period to be abnormally normal and predictable. So fast forward to 2015, I was told that I needed to have partial thyroidectomy. So the left side of my thyroid was removed, and then they drained the nodules on the right side, and I was told, okay, you're good to go. If anything, we're gonna have to put you on thyroid medication if your thyroid hormone is not working the way it should be. Okay, fine, great. Except not great. I hate medication, and so that was like the bane of my existence. 2015, I am fine. The rest of 2015, I had my surgery in November. 2016, I am fine. They continue to monitor my thyroid. Everything is going well. Now, mind you, 2015, 2016, November to January, no period. But again, something else, like other things were going on. And I don't know if it was just that for some reason the holiday season was particularly challenging for me or stressful. I think I just kind of equated it to that, and so I just never even thought about it. A few times I was like, oh my god, am I pregnant? But then I was like, no, you can't be pregnant. You have to have sex to be pregnant. And you know, you ain't having sex, you're gonna get pregnant. And I was like, ain't no immaculate conception happening here. Then we hit 2016 February. I start to feel a little run down. And was it February? Or maybe earlier, maybe January? I think either January or February, like I start to feel away. My period comes back. but I'm still not feeling quite myself. So I go into the doctor and I'm like, hey, I don't know if now that half of my thyroid is gone, like the hypothyroidism is really starting to present itself. I'm eating all of the right things. I'm eating a clean diet. I'm not overeating. I'm not eating fast food. I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm gaining weight and I'm having a hard time losing the weight. And my endocrinologist at the time, she said to me, oh, you're just, not really doing what you're supposed to do in terms of healthy diet. Don't eat bananas, or if you do, eat one banana. Let that be your meal for like your breakfast, and then have a salad for lunch, a big salad, and then for dinner have a small piece of fish and then some steamed vegetables. And I was like, okay, that sounds all well and good, but A, I'm black, B, I'm West Indian, and C, what the hell kind of crackhead diet is that? And she's like, well, if you want to lose weight, that's what you need to do. So I said, fine, I'll give it a try. So I did that, and I was like, okay, I don't eat big portions anyway, so I wasn't really hungry, but I was like, this doesn't seem satisfying or fulfilling. Like, I'm used to food with flavor, right? Seasoning. And she's telling me to eat this bland, no seasoning kind of food. But I was like, all right, I'll try it. Now, I have to interject here. My endocrinologist, although she is a woman, or my former endocrinologist is a woman, she's a white woman from South Africa. So culturally very different. And for me, I don't necessarily think race plays that big of a role in the expertise of the doctor you have, but I think there are certain cultural nuances in terms of who you're treating, how you're treating them, and what comes into play makes sense that you should be aware of if you're treating certain types of patients. So I go back to her and I'm like, all right, Jay, this isn't working. I was like, I'm continuing to gain weight. And this woman really looked at me and said, I don't think you're being honest with me or yourself. I think you're not eating what I'm telling you to eat, and I don't think you're exercising. It seems like you're just lazy, and it seems like you're just eating whatever and expecting the weight to fall off. And I was like, is this woman talking to me? Now, mind you, at this time, I'm a Buddhist, and at that time, I had been practicing for quite some time, but I was not the reformed young lady that you see sitting before you today. And I was like, yo, she's really about to get a good cuss-up. I mean, know who she talk to. But I was like, all right, you can't wild out like that on people. So I was like, okay, I said, that's not true. I can show you my food diary. Let me show you in my Fitbit what I've been recording. You'll see also my exercise. Like, I'm busting my ass and nothing's working. So she was like, all right, we'll start you on Synthroid, which is a thyroid medication. It's a synthetic form of the thyroid hormone. And she started me off at a low dose, whatever the lowest is. I think it's like 25 milligrams or something like that. Took that for a while, I'm like, not working. Upped it to 50, took that for a while, not working. Now, all this time, like we hit February, the month of February, I gained 30 pounds in 3 weeks. Now, I don't realize immediately that I gained this 30 pounds because I was working from home. And so, I'm wearing t-shirts and tank tops, sweats and leggings, things that are stretchy. And I didn't really put too much focus on it. I just knew I didn't feel well. I was tired all of the time. And not just tired, but I was having a hard time remembering things. My brain seemed kind of like, I equated it to having like cobwebs up there. I was like, I feel like Alzheimer's and dementia had a child, and it was me, because I couldn't remember anything. Like, I would know that this was a brochure, but I wouldn't be able to say the word brochure. I'd be like, it's that thing with like writing and pictures that promote something, gives you information, and people would be like, a brochure? Or I'd be like, the thing that you use to call someone and it rings, and people would be like, the phone? Like, it was that bad. My hair was thinning. It started to fall out. And so she was like, okay, we're gonna increase your Synthroid. I think I got put on 75. And then I was like, yo, it's still not working. I'm now feeling like ridiculously exhausted. One day I was driving my car and I fell asleep at a stoplight, like literally out. And I did not wake up until the people behind me started beeping. And I live in New York, so you know, New York folk, you don't move when you're supposed to move. It's the bam, 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 and that's what woke me up. And so I was like, all right, Synthroid is not for me. Can we try Armour Thyroid, which is a synthesized version of the pig thyroid. And because apparently pigs and humans have similar makeup, I don't even know if I'm explaining it right, they felt like that was the best recourse for me. So I get put on Synthroid, Armour Thyroid, and I'm on Armour Thyroid for a couple of months. So now February I gained weight. From February through the rest of that year, I steadily gained 1 pound a week for the rest of the year. By the end of the year, I'm up 65 pounds. Now remember I told you I was like 127 pounds, right? And that's my normal weight. I flipped out because I tried to go put on a pair of size 4 jeans, and my size 4 jeans was like, ha ha, you tried it. So I decided, let me check the rest of my closet and see what else can fit me. I start taking things out, nothing fits. When I say nothing fits, nothing. Like none of my like sheath dresses, none of my form-fitting corporate attire that I usually wear was fitting, and I had a meltdown. I ragged every single piece of clothing out of that closet and donated them to the victims of the hurricane in Barbuda. I'm from Antigua and Barbuda, so I was like, at least if I can't wear them, let somebody else. Literally, I gave away, I want to say maybe 75 to 80% of my wardrobe, and I had a lot of clothes. Like I had 2 closets packed to the gills, drawers. I have a dresser with maybe like 9 drawers. Like I have a lot of clothes, and I gave away 75 to 80% of my wardrobe. At this point, I was like, all right, this endocrinologist, she's not hearing me. She's not listening to me. She's culturally insensitive. And before I have to go cuss this woman out, I was like, let me go find another endo. So I ended up talking to one of my coworkers because he was saying, oh, I see a weight management specialist, Weill Cornell, blah, blah. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, I'm on this weight loss medication. I was like, well, he's not obese. How is he gonna weight loss medication and he ain't got no problems? Anyway, I was like, all right, I'll take the number. I'll try it out. And I tried to select one, somebody who it seemed like was folk, or had some type of cultural flavor to them. I was like an Asian, an Indian, a black person, another woman. I was like, I will take anyone except for her. That didn't happen, but my new endocrinologist, so I went to see him. This is like 2017. I had to wait a long time. And I was like, that's how you know they're good, when the wait time is long for new patients. So I went to see him, and he was like, oh, how can I help you? And I sat down and I literally said, I'm going to sound like a hypochondriac, but I need you to listen to me and not dismiss me or tell me that I'm crazy. I went through my entire history with him. Usually, these doctor's appointments, they try to usher you out in like 10 to 12 minutes. I was in there for a full hour, and I went through everything. And I was like, these are all of my cards on the table. I need you to take me seriously. I said, I'm willing to try pharmaceutical paths, a naturopath, what's the other one? Not intentional medicine. Oh my God, the word is escaping me. Functional medicine. I was like, I'm willing to try any and all of it. I was like, so there's something wrong with me, and my endocrinologist is not listening to me. And he listened to me, and he said, I'm hearing a couple of things, and he went through his 3 different paths of what he was hearing. And he said, I'm going to do some tests, and I also want you to go and see your gynecologist. And here's the test that I want you to ask him to administer, and we're gonna see where things end up. So now we are toward the end of 2017, maybe like late summer, early fall. So he does when I tell you a whole bunch of tests, it was like 8 or 9 vials of blood. He sent me to my gynecologist and asked my gynecologist to do a thorough gynecological exam. My gynecologist also sent me for an intravaginal ultrasound, and then as well as a sonogram of my abdomen, specifically on my ovaries. This took a couple of months. So now we are in December. So I head with my dad to Canada with my daughter, chopping it up for Christmas. Ray. He calls me over Christmas and he goes, stop taking your thyroid medication. You don't need it. Your thyroid medication that you're taking is making you go into the hyperthyroidism range. He was like, stop taking it immediately. This was on Christmas Day, right? So I was like, oh my gosh, what the hell? So now I'm still like, what is actually going on? So come back in the new year, I call him after the holidays and I'm like, I stopped taking it. I was like, I'm not feeling that much better, but still, you know, he, and again, now at this point, because it's December going into January, I ain't got no period. So I told him all of that. So he prescribed Provera, not Depo-Provera, but Provera. And he tells me to take it. I took it for, I think you take it for like 10 days and your period is supposed to come within 3 days after the 10th day. Boom, period comes. So he's like, okay, that's a good sign. I go to my gynecologist now and I'm like, okay, my period came back, and he's like, well, you're an ovarian failure. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And why does it sound so dire? Come to find out, ovarian failure is just a very nice way of saying, you're in menopause, baby. So now at this point, I'm like, this is 17, so I'm like late 30s. And I'm like, wait, what? I was like, no, isn't it like early? He's like, yeah, it's very early. You're only the second person in my over 25 years of practicing who's ever had this issue. And I was like, of course I would be the medical anomaly. Like, of course. So I go, okay, great. He sends the results to my endo. Boom, boom, boom. I'm at work. At the time I was in travel PR. I'm on a press trip in Spain. And I am like 192 pounds at this point. So remember, I was the girl who was 127 pounds. When I started gaining all the weight, I was 135 pounds. And at this point, I'm 192 pounds. And I am huge. Well, everybody was like, oh, you can't really tell, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can tell. My clothes can tell. And because I had given away all of my clothes, I was doing one of those clothing subscription services because I was like, I'm not buying clothes in this size. I went from being a size 2'4" to being a size 12. And there was no end in sight. One thing I did fail to mention, oh no, mentira, I'm gonna tell you this now. So I'm in Spain, it's like, I don't know, like 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. I'm in Barcelona with the press group. We're shopping. And I get a call and I'm like, what is this? So I'm listening. The nurse from the doctor's office calls and she's like, the doctor wanted me to tell you that you have polycystic ovarian syndrome. And it was confirmed by the ultrasounds that your gynecologist sent over. And he'd like for you to come in and see him so that we can discuss the next course of treatment. Now, I have no idea what polycystic ovarian syndrome is. And I'm like, oh my God, what is that? I start like freaking out. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, because you know, numb. And I was like, holy freaking cow. So immediately, like, I check out mentally. The group is there and I'm like researching polycystic ovarian syndrome. I think I read about 30 articles on PCOS and the symptoms and what it is and treatment options, maybe in like 2 hours. And I called the doctor's office the next morning and I was like, okay, I'm clearer now. Like, I'm in another country. So, excuse me, it took me a while. I was like, but what does that mean? And what are my options? And is there medication? Like, what are the treatment options? So the nurse kind of tells me some stuff. I come back to New York, I meet with the doctor, he prescribes metformin and it's like, this is the best thing for you, it should help you start to lose weight. And I immediately start to look into non-medical information. So I scour the internet and I find all these two particular women, and I'll drop their information below. And they both have programs for women with PCOS that have like eating plans that help to regulate your hormones, allow you to lose weight, and suggest like other supplements and things that you can take. What's interesting is they both advocate for not taking metformin or glucophage, I think is the proper name. Metformin, I think, is the brand name. For your symptoms. And essentially metformin is a diabetes drug, and women with PCOS tend to be insulin resistant. And anyone who knows anything about nutrition, you know that every time you eat, your insulin increases, or your insulin spikes. So essentially your body releases insulin and your body is not like regulating the insulin that's being released, so it continues to release and you become resistant to the benefits that insulin is supposed to have for your body, which is why you gain weight, especially around the middle. So that happens. I'm starting to take this metformin. It is big ass horse pills. They make me feel ill. I try all of the different things that they say. Like I started at 1, ramped up to 3, taking them all at once, taking 1 with each meal, taking 2 and then 1 and then 2. I tried all kinds of combinations. I wasn't feeling it. After a few months, it kind of leveled off, but I still wasn't really with it. At this point in time now, I'm still continuing to see the doctor regularly. I'm pissed as hell at the other doctor that I had, the endocrinologist, because she did not even think to test me for PCOS. And at one point she was like, oh, I'm looking at your tests and everything is normal. If it's one thing I hate is when doctors tell you, I'm looking at your tests and everything is normal. And I'm like, well, everything ain't normal because I'm super in tune to all of this and I'm telling you something is off. So I'm taking the metformin, continuing to take it. Now it's like 18, 19, which was just last year. And things are starting to move. So I was able to lose 30, 35 pounds following a PCOS meal plan, which is low carb, high fat, moderate protein. Sound familiar? But it's very healthy. Like there's still some carbs in there, unlike keto. And I kind of got to a point where I was like, I think I was like 167 and I couldn't lose any more weight. And then I found another eating plan called the Sadkin method. And if you want me to do a video on that, let me know, drop that in the comments below. So I started doing Sadkin, and on Sadkin, I was kicking butt. I think I lost like 12 pounds. So I was down to like 150, 151. I was like, oh, my body's coming back. And then I was like flatline there. So hit a plateau. Cut to this past summer, everybody and their mama was doing keto, and a really good friend of mine suggested that I do keto because he did research and he was like, I think it'll work for you. Everyone in my office was doing keto and they were like, I think it would work for you. And so I tried keto. First 2 weeks on taking metformin, and I literally like slowly but surely started to reintroduce certain things into my diet. Now at this point, I've already given up gluten. I've already given up dairy. I don't eat meat, no red meat of any kind at all. I eat fish sometimes, chicken and turkey. Duck is my favorite, but I haven't had that in a very long time. And a lot of plant-based foods. So lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, specifically low GI carbs, fruits and vegetables, because that's the other component that you have to consider when you have PCOS. And I was like, nah fam, something is happening. So everything bad that they say will happen to you if you do keto happened to me. And I was only doing it a month. I paid for a full-on keto meal plan, everything. Like I was doing everything right. One thing about me, if I do something, I do it to the letter. Like you can't tell me that I'm not doing it correctly. If you say jump 10 feet, 3 p.m., and then at 7, I'm doing that. I'll ask you, should I go any higher, any lower? I want to know everything. So I follow instructions and directions and protocols to the letter. So I was very disturbed when I had this reaction. So I go see my endocrinologist a few weeks ago, and he's like, I tell him what happened, and he was like, oh no, keto, is not that healthy, which we're seeing all of the articles come out now. And he's like, and if you would have called me, I would have told you definitely not while you're on metformin. He was like, especially for someone with a hormonal imbalance or hormone condition, your body's not strong enough to be able to keep up with the rigors of such a strict and stringent diet. And I was like, yeah, I kind of figured that out, but thank you so much. Good news, I'm off the metformin. Bad news, I started gaining weight again. So right now, as of this morning, I was 160.2 pounds. On Wednesday, which was only like 2 or 3 days ago, I was 165 pounds, and I was literally pulling my hair out. Yesterday was a horrible day for me. I was depressed, which is one of the symptoms you have when you have PCOS. It just wasn't a good day. And I hadn't felt like that since early on in my diagnosis. And early on in my diagnosis, like, I had everything. I had like a couple whiskers growing out, so I had the hirsutism. Not bad, thankfully, not bad. Oh my gosh, because some women full on like beard. I had the hirsutism. I had the thinning hair. I had the falling out hair. My hair used to be like down here. I chopped it off, had a little low cut because I didn't want to look crazy. I had the dry skin. I had the brain fog. I had the exhaustion. I had the weight gain. Like almost every single symptom that you could have, I had. And then I developed anxiety, which I had never been an anxious person. And I saw a phrase, and it was anxious depression. And I was like, that's definitely what I have. One of the things my doctor said at my last visit, because I have not had a menstrual period for several months now, he said, I no longer have PCOS, and I'm pretty much in menopause. Oh yeah, the hot flashes. That's another fun little thing that I can't stand. And it seems like it does not want to go away. Like, I've legit had hot flashes for 3 months. But I'm not bitter. I'm alive. And I am mostly happy, so there's that. And I know I sound facetious when I say it, but like, I really, really mean it. So he took me off the metformin, which is great, because I always said, like, if I had to take a medication for the rest of my life in order to survive, I probably wouldn't go make it. So I was really happy that he took me off. Plus, there are all these studies that like metformin messes with like your vitamin B levels, which can explain the exhaustion. And so many people in PCOS circles advocate for you not to be on it. So I was glad for that. What I'm doing now, post that diagnosis of you no longer have PCOS, is I'm doing a cleanse, the Arise and Shine cleanse, and I'm going to do a video on that soon. And what I will say, just for the purpose of this video, is within the first week to 2 weeks of me doing the 28-day cleanse that I'm doing, I was able to wake up in the morning. I haven't been able to wake up in the morning in months, maybe a couple of years. Like, I was able to wake up like before my alarm clock, which is what I used to be able to do. The brain fog is dissipating. My energy is coming back. And I'm starting to feel more like myself. Like I said, except for yesterday, because I have gained weight while on the cleanse, which I don't understand. Like I said, I'll do a video on that. But for the most part, I've joined support groups. My nutrition is in a good place. I'm following the PCOS meal plans again. And one of the things that I had to learn, and I'm still learning, is I don't think of it as a PCOS diet, even though that's how some people bill it. It's a lifestyle, and you just have to get used to this lifestyle. And it starts with doing little things like, instead of saying, I can't have that, you say, what I really like to eat is, or the foods that are healing for me and my body type or my metabolic type are. And it takes a while. Like, I've been dealing with this since my diagnosis was 2017. So for almost 3 years, and it takes time. I'm still getting used to my body. It's frustrating some days. I was really excited when I got down to 150 pounds because I was able to fit into size 4s, and I started going and buying size 4s, and now they can't fit again. But I'm trying not to let that beat me, and like I said, it's day by day. I'm still single, which for me, it doesn't help because I do miss having that extra support, but I do have a great support group. I do talk to my friends, I do talk to my family, I try to keep busy, and for the most part that it's helping. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment box below. If you have any suggestions, you can drop those in the comment box below also. And thank you. Thank you for hearing me out. Thank you for requesting this video. Thank you for allowing me into your life. And thanks for taking a sneak peek into mine. Until our next video, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll talk to you soon.